well, this is my weight loss head. It's manageability, intuitiveness, lifestyle, freedom, sustainability. That's what that stands for, right?
Yes.
I've got one more hat. How about this one?
Oh my God, that was awesome. Today, we are talking about failure.
Failure indeed. We failed a lot of times, haven't we?
Oh, yes. It's
Some would say even 15 times.
Some would say 110 times. No, but in all seriousness, it's going to be a good conversation because I think Mike and I have kind of a unique perspective on failure, especially when it comes to fitness, because I think anybody that has more than half a brain that is in the fitness industry will tell you that failure isn't just a part of the process. It's almost required, and it is required. And we're not speaking just in like the training until failure, gym process, but I think that's a part of it as well, obviously. But just like actually genuinely fucking up.
One of my big quotes is, we don't scar over healthy tissue, we scar over wounds. We don't grow tougher in our good days, we grow tougher in our bad ones. Obviously, we would like to have more good days, but we need to know what those good days are. We need to have some kind of like a contrast between the good days and the bad days to understand them and to figure out how we can create more of them. What can we do? How can we expose ourselves? Think of it like, well, this will be controversial here. Think of it like a vaccine. How can we expose ourselves to things that are a little bit difficult so that when the difficult things do hit, they don't take us out?
Yeah. It's about managing expectations and being prepared to fail a few times. I wrote something down today on the program that Mike and I are working on together, and I said, expecting perfection is guaranteeing disappointment. So when you're walking into a fitness journey and you're saying, I know I am going to nail this. I know I'm going to go 10 out of 10. This time is different. I'm going to be on my shit this week. I'm going to stay on track. On track, off track, there is no fucking track. Stop saying that there's a fucking track, because when you're telling yourself that you're on track, it's automatically creating an opportunity for you to fall off track. Stop viewing it that way. Stop viewing it as a light switch of on track or off track, and turn it into a spectrum where it's just a lifestyle. How good can I do today? How far did I move the needle forward? And if the needle didn't move forward, what can I do differently? It's about finding ways to analyze yourself and see what happens, like see what happened, that like what went wrong in a better sense, without punishing yourself or dwelling on it for too long, and purely looking at it from what can I do better next time?
You cooked with that line, by the way.
Thank you.
Drop it once again for everybody.
Expecting perfection is guaranteeing disappointment.
Quoted by Nostradamus.
That's a good one. I like that.
That's going to be your nugget dropping persona.
Well, it's either Nostradamus or the Big Fellas podcast, brought to you by PP and Poo Poo. So
that'll be a whole separate section. We'll get into that. A lot of people will start their weight loss journeys listening to the loudest voices in the room, which tend to be keto and fasting and all that kind of stuff. Those aren't very sustainable options. Actually, they're not sustainable options. You really can't do it. Every once in a while, you get somebody who slips through the cracks and is able to complete it somehow, and they just don't go back. But it's not going to be you. Don't try it. And also, why? Why give it a shot? Because it's going to suck. Don't set yourself up for failure. That's another thing, too. We're going to experience it anyway, so why set yourself up for it? But you need to experience it in the beginning. You need to understand what it is that's not going to work before you can figure out what will. I will often refer to it as spoiling the magic. When people are insistent on going ahead and trying to starve themselves through the thing, I obviously can't condone that. There's no evidence to support it could help anybody. And you and I, we work with a lot of people who are in our space. No one can attribute it to that. No one attributes it to keto. Nobody attributes it to fasting. We've all figured out that the only way to go about this is slowly and messing up slowly. But people will do these things and they feel like they failed. That I just didn't do keto right, or I didn't do fasting right. You did it right. It's just that's what happens when you do it. You fail.
You did the wrong thing the right way, or you did the wrong thing the wrong way, and now you're still trying to do the wrong thing the right way, but it's still the wrong thing.
So what did we learn from that? Some people learn not to do it again. Some people look at the part of it that did work and they try to chase that again. We have to learn from those failures. If something doesn't work, try it a different way. That's what's important here. That's one of the lessons. You got to learn to do something different ways to make it work.
Yeah, Mike and I talked a lot because every time we record a podcast, Mike and I have already been on the phone for like 3 hours before the podcast even starts, working on some other things. And we kind of almost like pregame our conversations for recording these. It gives ourselves some general talking points. And we talked a lot about failure today. And we talked a lot about basically when you are trying to approach something like this in a sustainable way, it requires a lot of unteaching first and then reteaching the correct things. And think of it, I'm a big sports guy. I love basketball. For the longest time, I had an absolutely broken jump shot. And some of my friends may argue that it's still broken. I would say check my points last night when I played you fuckers. Anyway, if you have a mechanically broken jump shot, you are forever limiting yourself on your ability to play basketball. Because you can master your broken form, but it's still going to be broken form. If you're shooting it incorrectly, your ceiling is capped. So if you take the time, like, okay, I tried this keto thing, I tried this fasting thing, I tried this paleo thing, whatever, a couple times, it didn't work, might be time to try something new. And it's not easy to do that. That's the hard part, because most people just want one solution to a complex issue. And that's kind of when the magic pill stuff comes in. But when it comes to failure specifically, approaching it in the right way and like giving yourself like, okay, if I do this for 6 months, I'm going to probably at least fail once a week on something. Maybe they're smaller failures as you continue, but something else that I want to be said, there have been zero, statistically, actual fact here, zero perfect weight loss journeys. There has not been a single person on the planet that has lost over 40 or 50 pounds that did not fuck up at least once. But from that, they learned the right lessons and they actually were able to do it and keep it off. If you look at anybody who has lost the weight and kept it off, obviously Mike and I, there's a couple other really great creators, like Chris Terrell's a really good one. I forget.
Love you, Chris.
Ethan Suplee, the actor, talks a lot about different sustainable ways as well. He's in my favorite movie, Remember the Titans, one of my favorite movies ever. They'll all tell you lessons that they're learning from mistakes that they've made. I talk a lot about my content. I tell the ER hospital donut story. I don't know if I ever told you that one or if you've seen that video, but that's a mistake. It's the cheat day mistake. So the reason other people have benefited from that is because it's a lesson that I learned the hard way. And sometimes we're stubborn motherfuckers. Human beings are stubborn creatures. So we can be told one thing, but sometimes the only way that we can actually learn to actually see the results that we want is we have to force ourselves to fuck up first. And that's okay. It's just a matter of not dwelling on the fuck up, looking at the lesson that it's teaching you, and then moving on with a new mindset.
Let's talk about the difference between something like keto not working, where it's just we're setting up for failure no matter what because we're getting into it and it's awful. Like, when is it that we can determine that it's something that's simply not going to work? Because some people will say, I'm in a plateau, and they've had the same weight for 2 days in a row, which, by the way, if you know what your weight is 2 days in a row, you're weighing yourself too much. Yeah. So stop doing that. When is it that we should consider something to be failure?
That's a good question. I think if you're basically asking, like, how do you know if you're failing on the right thing, essentially?
Yeah. Because if we're looking at weight fluctuations, that's not failure. But if you were to look at it and you've got that mindset, you'll think that that's fail. Oh no, I went up, a decimal point of a pound. I'm failing. You're not failing all the time.
Well, I think there's two things to look at. Yeah, I think there's two things to look from there. One, could you see yourself in one way or another? Maybe there's a tweak or two around there, but could you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life? If you are on something that you just feel is absolutely miserable and you're counting the days until it's finished, until you reach your goal weight, quote unquote, quotation marks, until you reach your finish line, if you're just praying and hoping that it happens soon, newsflash, you're trying the wrong thing, at least the wrong thing for you. And it's time to switch up the plan entirely. Something else scary. It's very scary. Something else I would say, like, Weight loss is very simple. There's a reason I say keep it simple, big fella, all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
But weight loss is actually a very simple concept once you just actually look at it objectively.
Mechanically
But
simple.
yes. A big determining factor in a lot of people's journeys, and a good identifier, is it uncomfortable? Are you pushing yourself towards discomfort, or are you pushing yourself towards literal harm? That is a decipher, or something to decipher within yourself. So for example, if I had continued doing those cheat days, like the ER hospital story, which essentially, for anybody that doesn't know, I forced myself to have a cheat day. I ate probably about 4,000 calories in about 23 minutes, and I gave myself severe indigestion and had to go to the hospital like 2 a.m. because I thought I was dying. Embarrassing, of course, but whatever. I learned my lesson, but that was harming me, and that's when I identified, like, okay, that's the wrong thing for me. This cheat day thing doesn't work for me because it caused me harm. It's one thing to run towards discomfort. People always say growth comes from discomfort, and that's genuinely the truth. But there is a difference between harming yourself and throwing yourself at discomfort. Like, for example, writing down a food journal. That's a little uncomfortable. Like, I just signed a new client, and she thought the idea of starting a food journal seems like she's full gung-ho. She's going to start it. But she was like, this is new. I'm like, yeah, it is. But you're creating a new lifestyle. So we're trying something that's going to push her a little bit out of her comfort zone. It's not going to harm her.
Not if we look at it the right way. Because some
Right.
people will track in pursuit of basically harming themselves. They're not looking at it that way, but if you look at that in terms of punishment, it will cause you harm. You can't punish yourself through this process. And a lot of people, some of you out there listening right now, might either be using tracking to harm yourself, or you might think of tracking as self-harm because that's the way it was used. When Noah and I prescribe these food logs to our clients, we do so with the understanding, and we make sure that our clients know that there is no moral value attached to any specific item that goes onto this list. We're just measuring something. It's like a tape measure or a ruler. There's no inch on there that's better than the others. It's all the same. You're just trying to get an idea of what's going in, and that's it. Same with calories. It's a unit of energy. That's all it is. But there are some people out there who look at calories like points in a golf game, whereas the more of them that you have, the worse you've done. It's not the way that we should be looking at it.
That's why golf is a dumb sport.
It is a dumb
Hot
sport.
Hot take. Sorry for I have a couple of golfer clients. I mean,
well, we lost our Titleist sponsorship.
Yep, there it goes. Damn it.
They dropped everything. We're not selling golf balls
also,
here
I
anymore.
just made every one of my clients that's like a 25 and up year old male pissed now.
Just
but
lost 2
anyway,
billionaire clients.
What I was also saying is, thank you, John. Never mind. One of them I was thinking of that said that I thought might play golf just said golf is a dumb sport, so we're good.
We got somebody in the comments?
Yeah, John. I love John. He's getting married in a month, by the way. Shout out, John.
Hey, John.
He had to get his wedding ring resized because we've worked together for this past year. He had to get his wedding ring resized, and he had to get his whole tux refitted a month out.
Damn.
So,
look at you, John. Congratulations.
Very proud of John. Shout out, John.
Very much not failure right there.
Yes, exactly. But what you kind of mentioned there with the labeling foods, using calories as self-harm, stuff like that, or tracking calories as possible self-harm, something that I talked to quite a few of my clients last week was all foods fitting and what that actually looks like. And I approached it from a scenario in comparing and describing and what being very matter of the fact around processed food, right? So remember what I said earlier about the light switch, the on or off, okay? The black or white viewing. That's the easiest way to call it. Stop labeling shit as black and white. You shouldn't do it ever, honestly. Nothing in life is that matter of fact. It's more of a gradient. Think it as a spectrum where this side is black, this side is white, but it just kind of all fades in and out of each other and gets lighter and darker. And it's just like, where do you fall on that spectrum? That is how you should view a lot of foods. Not good food and bad food, not processed food and whole food. A huge mistake. One of the biggest mistakes I ever see in the hundreds of people that I've worked with, is that labeling, hey, I ate crap food yesterday, or hey, is it bad to eat this? No. There's no bad foods. There's no good foods or bad foods. It's all just food. It's just on a spectrum. It's not a green for good, red for bad, like some of the fucking bullshit Weight Watchers and Noom will have you believe. But I was teaching them the power of viewing it as a spectrum, as a part of black or instead of black and white. And that is especially apparent with processed foods. So it's not a question of is something processed or not. The question is, how processed is it? If you live anywhere in the United States, Canada, or pretty much Europe, or anywhere in the world, to be fucking honest, everything you eat is processed. Unless you go walk out into the woods and find a berry on a tree, which, I mean, good luck. You're eating something that's processed. That's okay. That is okay. Some processing needs to happen for our bodies to properly digest things. So not all processing is bad. That's one of the bigger mistakes I see. And I think the processed food analogy really helps translate that. It's not a matter of good or bad. It's where does it fall on that spectrum? It's not a matter of is it whole food or processed food. It's how processed is it? And I think that one perspective shift can save a lot of people from a lot of mistakes.
Are there things we could use less of? Perhaps. But you could overdose on anything, really. And I would like to perform a stunt here.
I know what you just did. Okay.
I feel like I may have done this before, but each time might be the last, according to TikTok, if you were to watch it long enough. Behold, the poster child of the most processed food you could ever have, the Oreo, the humble Oreo. And I myself have taken not one, because I think last time I just had one, but two of them. Oh no, what will happen? So there's a lot of people out there who tend to look to the two of us as role models, perhaps, or they see our bodies and they want to live in our bodies. Don't realize that we want to look like other people, but that's a topic for another day. I have Oreos all the time because they're delicious. Am I going to sit here and eat the entire thing? No. Nor will eating this Oreo constitute failure. Tying that back in. Let's get those chewing noises in there.
ASMR.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's really good.
That's good stuff.
Oreos, please sponsor us.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That would be sick. Now, that is a sponsorship I would take.
Oh, for sure. Maybe we can make I was going to say protein Oreos, but have you had the Lenny and Larry's protein Oreos?
No, I've never even bought. I see the cookies in the stores all the time, but I've seen the macros and they're not that great, so I don't really.
Mm-hmm. They're great for bulking if you're fine with eating chocolate chip flavored drywall. Which, by the way, guilty. I've been eating them because they're great for bulking. But in terms of this Oreo right here, if I were to go back in time to the very beginning and I saw myself doing this, or I had an Oreo, my first thought would be, I messed up. It's over. I failed. Why? Why do we feel like this is a failure?
Back to the sports audit, or the sports idea, rather. It's very basic. Uh-oh. Oh, not the double. Oh, you fucking maniac. Oh, my God. You, not to be cringy or cliche, but Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And also, just because you miss one doesn't fucking mean that you are automatically a failure. I missed plenty of shots. I play basketball every Tuesday night, the night before I record these videos with Mike. And I made a bunch of shots and I missed a bunch of shots. It's a part of playing basketball. It's having that goldfish memory. If anybody has watched Ted Lasso, they'll know. Have the memory of a goldfish. 10-second memory loop. Okay? If you fuck up, it's fine. You can't go back and change it. Okay? Mike doesn't regret eating those Oreos, but if later, for some reason, he does start, which I know he won't, but let's just say theoretically he does, he can't fucking uneat it. It's already in his system. So that's what it ties us back into what we were saying earlier with analyzing possible mistakes and it's a hard skill to do, but reflecting is very different than dwelling because they both involve analyzing the past, but think about dwelling as if I'm in a car, okay? If I make a mistake, okay, let's say my weight loss journey is me driving on a road trip down a straight road, and let's say I hit a pothole, okay, or something. I make a mistake. Dwelling is taking my hands off the wheel, turning around, and completely disregarding what's in front of me and staring at what I hit behind me. And then what happens? I turn off and crash the fucking vehicle. Reflecting is I look in the rearview mirror, I analyze what happened, and then I stay forward. That is how you learn. That is the perfect analogy that I can give for when you make a mistake. You keep looking forward, but you look at the rearview mirror, see what changes you need to make, and you keep driving forward. There is a reason that the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror.
I've got a car analogy too, which goes really well with that. When you're driving 10 miles an hour, say you don't even touch the gas pedal and you're just sort of coasting forward and you hit a pole, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to muck up your car a little bit. It's not going to be great. You're going to be a little disappointed. You'll have some scratches, maybe a dent. No big deal. Some of you are starting your weight loss journeys at 50 miles an hour, where you're just slamming on that pedal and going, and you don't care what's happening. You don't know how to drive yet, and you're just moving forward. Of course, you're going to set yourself up for failure when you go that fast. Start slow. Don't look behind you.
It's like putting a toddler in an F1 car.
Which I would love to see if there was a way to do that safely somehow.
Yeah, okay,
if there was a way to do it safely, yeah, no one dies. I want to bring one thing up too, on the Wayne Gretzky thing. I just looked up the best batting average in MLB history. Do you want to take a guess at what that is? It's not 100%.
No. Is it in the threes?
It is in the threes.
I'm going to say 0.34.
That is right beneath the second guy, which is 0.358. The top, the best player that there's ever been with the highest batting average in MLB history, Ty Cobb at 0.366.
Wow.
That is just above a third of the shots that were taken did he hit. And he's the greatest one, just by the numbers. I mean, I didn't know his name, but I'm not a big sports guy. But that is considered to be an incredibly successful career. In fact, statistically, the best one. Mm-hmm. So, what does that say about your failures? If you're hitting a third, that's great by certain standards, especially when right now you probably feel like you're not hitting anything. So getting up to a third would be fantastic.
The bests of all time, the Michael Phelps, the Michael Jordans, LeBron James, Tom Brady, now maybe Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I'm still salty. I'm a 49ers fan. We lost in the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes again. All the greats in anything, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, anything, the greatest of all time, all the artists in the world, Da Vinci, Van Gogh, they failed the most. Nobody failed more than them. And that is objective. Nobody failed more than the best people in the world because they just kept going. They just kept giving themselves opportunities. And most of the time they failed. But the reason that they're the best is because they kept going until they started failing a little less. And guess what happens? There's two outcomes. You either fail or you win. And they just got really good at that winning thing because they failed a bazillion times beforehand. What we saw was them at their peak. What we didn't see, it's like Kobe Bryant, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. Rest in peace. There is hundreds of stories of former teammates or just other basketball players in the NBA that would do like off-season training with this guy. Kobe Bryant is I forget how many championships he has. I think he has 3. I could be wrong on that. He has a lot of championships.
I have no idea.
I think he might have more than 3. Anyway, Kobe's got a ton of trophies, MVPs, finals MVPs, multiple Larry O'Brien trophies. He's won the NBA championship several times. He's one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball. If you hear stories, stop saying I look like Drago from Rocky. I hear that enough with the haircut. I always hear the Drogo or Drago. Yes. I like that comparison, but I hear that one all the time when I get my haircut. Anyway, Kobe Bryant, there are several accounts of him training with other players in the offseason, and they'll say, hey, I'll meet you at 7 a.m. He's there at 3, putting up shots
Show
by
off.
himself. He has already done 3.5 hours of work before the first guy gets there. And then he runs through the whole workout. Think of how many shots he missed when he was alone. Think about how many reps he's put up with nobody watching. Think about how many times he allowed himself to fail before he actually started winning. I mean, Kobe was regarded as like pure dedication, because there's some people that are like, people always talk about talent versus hard work. Kobe was pure hard work. Not to say that he was insanely talented. He's more talented than I'll ever be in my entire life. He was, compared to the rest of the greats, less naturally gifted compared to like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, naturally gifted, but he's better than most of them purely off of the reps he put in. He just kept showing up and giving himself opportunities to either win or learn. He never looked back.
Let me give a non-sports example. The comedian George Carlin. He had a 10% rule. And that was that if 10% of what he wrote was any good and made it onto the stage, he was successful in his writing, which means that 90% at the very least of the entirety of the body of his work was never seen or heard by anyone. And the man is prolific. He's got like 30 HBO specials. He's got 4 books. The breadth of the amount of information that he put out into the world is insurmountable. And to consider that that may only be 10% of his life's work is mind-boggling. That's just incredible to think of how much he was sitting and writing. There was a picture once that I saw of like a bunch of chests full of papers, because he didn't type anything out. It was all written. So there's just all these like yellow copy papers in it. I'm like, there's jokes in there that are probably just fine to be on stage, and he had determined that they weren't. But what he put out is legendary, and now he's one of the greatest comedians of all time, and always will be.
Absolutely. Let's pivot to something a little bit more objective on the topic of failure, a little bit more directly applicable, a little bit more science-based. We've kept the first 30 minutes very mindset, motivation-wise, talking about the journey as a whole, but let's get a little bit more niche down. Let's start talking about muscular failure. Let's start talking about
That's a good one.
Failure within weight training and sport and just any sort of physical activity, mechanical tension. Let's talk about it. So this is something that I love going over with my clients. We'll start them at the workouts. Everybody should start, not at 100% speed, like just feel it out, get comfortable. But once you're in the gym for a few weeks or a few months, the way to really spark some true serious growth is through intensity. Now, I'm not going to get crazy into it this time. I think that deserves its own episode. I genuinely do. However, when we talk about growing the size of your muscle and changing the way your body looks, assuming that your nutrition is half decent and you're getting more than 4 hours of sleep a night, the biggest factor outside of showing up every day is intensity. The biggest factor for growth is how much intensity are you bringing? And people could also talk about, what do you mean by intensity? How close are you to failing and how often are you failing? Now, there's a lot of science that people argue about the minutia of how close to failure you should be, or if you should train to failure all the time. There's some people that train to failure every single exercise, no matter what, all the time. And honestly, I do that sometimes. There are some days where I will I don't count reps anymore. I genuinely don't. I just go in until I can't do it anymore. And I keep it within a certain range. And then I know what weights I'm using, and I'll bump up the weights if I need to. Like the other day, yesterday I did some machine incline chest press. And my friend wanted to run a mile beforehand. So that was kind of stupid because I was all sweaty and out of breath before I start my workout.
And you depleted your muscle glycogen. If you're doing cardio before lifting, switch that around.
Yeah. Well, at least high intensity cardio, which is something I never do, by the way. If you do high intensity cardio, do it after your lift. But I was like, fuck it, why not? My friend's in town. Fuck it, whatever. So it completely ruined my glycogen stores. Do get slightly weaker because of it. But I didn't count any single rep. I just went until I literally physically could not move the bar anymore. And then I stopped. And doing that 2 or 3 times, that intensity is what is the best muscular growth, assuming again the other basic aspects like recovery and rest are done at least somewhat adequately. Obviously, that is the basics of mechanical tension. That is what mechanical tension requires to actually see proper growth. Because think about it as like a wet towel or like a dish rag. Think about just wringing out every last possible drop of what your muscle has left. You're maximizing your potential, and you're giving everything you have. You're gonna grow more than leaving 4 or 5 reps on the table. And when you are failing, you are literally getting stronger. So think about all the possible carryover when we talk about the metaphorical stuff earlier. When you are failing muscularly in the gym, you are literally getting stronger the next time.
Let's talk about why, and we'll dip a little bit more into the mindset stuff and into my wheelhouse again in this. But why is it that we need to try to push to failure? Because otherwise your body has no incentive to grow. And you are going to stay exactly where you are because your body doesn't want to put on muscle. Your body does not want to do that. It's very metabolically taxing and takes a lot for it to happen. So there needs to be a reason for it to happen. And pushing things to failure and making things difficult forces that to happen. Otherwise, your body has no need for muscle. You're not going to become stronger because you don't need to be. So how can you apply that to what you're doing now? Many of you may be in a point of stagnation where you're like, well, I can't fail because I'm not moving. Is stagnation not to failure? Is familiarity not failure in the same regard? If you are staying where you are and you've been listening to us for 37 minutes or whatever this is going to cut down to, shout out to Nomi for making us sound coherent. Is that not failure as well? To do nothing? Because again, like if you're listening this far into it, you want an answer. You want to grow. You want to do something. You're just worried about failure. You're worried about the possibility of failing or feeling like you're going to fail and being right. Go be
Already
wrong.
doing more than most. You're already doing more than most by watching us.
But that can't be it, because there are some people I know that are subscribed to us right now.
Action.
Yeah. I mean, there were times where I was watching stuff. Like, I mean, you probably had the same thing where you'd watch a weight loss channel or a workout video and you're like, well, I've done my studying, so I'm going to apply this some other time. You don't have to make a big step today. Just do something, whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you, whatever your capacity is, which may not be big right now. Go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought of something that kind of ties in the science behind muscle growth and just training in general with a topic we talked about earlier, with pushing yourself towards a little bit of discomfort versus actually harming yourself. And in the gym, I stress extensively to everybody I speak to, clients included, but anyone, when you're trying to get that pain, that fatigue, the burn, whatever people want to call it, the squeeze, it should feel like a dull, warm sensation, and it should be a little uncomfortable. That is what fatigue feels like. So if you're squeezing out last few reps of curls on the preacher curl and your biceps are screaming at you, it just feels like a nice dull burn. You're losing your grip. You're losing, that's discomfort. That is uncomfortable, but you're going to be fine, and you are literally going to grow. Your body is literally going to grow from that. But
it needs to.
But if you that is what dull pain should feel like. That is discomfort. But if you feel a sharp pain, that is harm. If you feel a sharp pain in your elbow or your knee or your ankle or your hip or your chest, that isn't a sign to fucking stop. That means you are now harming yourself. You are no longer pushing towards discomfort. You are now in the threshold of harm. So it ties in very nicely because your body knows. Your body knows more than you sometimes. And your body has a really good job of telling you, hey, motherfucker, this isn't just discomfort. This is actual harm. We need to stop. That's why you feel pain. So keep that in mind. We want to push ourselves discomfort actively, but if we do it the wrong way, we can harm ourselves.
Now, what does that sharp pain? I really like that analogy, by the way, because I mean, not that it was an analogy, but it can be applied as an analogy to weight loss. Because
Yes.
what is that dull pain versus sharp pain when it comes to losing weight? One could be consistent, very hard, awful hunger all the time. You've cut too many calories out, or you've cut an entire macronutrient out. That could be something right there. That could be a sharp pain. Are you mentally exhausted? Are you physically exhausted? Because the physical exhaustion will also come from the huge restriction of calories. That's going to be considered a sharp pain. You should not feel sharp pain through this the whole time. You really shouldn't feel it at all. If you get near it, we got to stop. We got to back it away. Like with, we'll go back to the gym for a second. If I feel like I'm about to pull a muscle, I stop. I don't care if I'm 20% into my workout. If something happened where I feel like my muscle's not going to pull through, I'm done. Because I'd rather skip my workout for the day than to try to push it and then be out of the gym for 2 weeks. I'm 30. I don't heal the same way that Noah does at this point. So I have to be a little bit slower with my uptake. I mean, I'm getting better and stronger. It's never too late to get better and healthier. And I've never been in better shape at 30 than I was at 20. I'm in better shape now. Discomfort.
See that?
Ooh, look at that.
So
That's some artwork right there.
oh yes, very high quality. So here we have discomfort. Here we have pain. Notice, for those of you that can't see or you're listening, the discomfort is a singular line at a very steady, safe slope going down over a very long stretch. The pain is very sharp juts down and very long, sustained juts back up. There's no actual progress in the pain section. And this is representing scale weight, by the way. Weight loss is not a sprint. Weight loss is a slow walk. Stop trying to fucking sprint. You're not Usain Bolt. Give yourself one thing to get better at and only do that. That's what this is. Slow, applicable, gradual habit addition over the long term with no time frames. This time I tried keto. This time I tried fasting. This time I just straight up starved myself. And notice how the scale weight is going up. And notice how the juts down are very short. You can sprint for 2 minutes, but then you have to sit down and rest for 2 hours. Or I could just walk slowly without ever stopping. Who's going to get further? I rest my case.
For some of you out there, food is your only coping mechanism. That's all you've got. Emotional eating is not, and some people will disagree with me on this. Some people in our space will disagree. It works. Emotional eating works. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Is it a good thing to do? No. But it works for a brief moment, and then we're stuck with the consequences after. But for just a second, it feels good. And this is really the part that people are going to disagree with. I think there are use cases for emotional eating, but think of it more so of this way. Just like there's use cases for an EpiPen. You're not going to take that to go outside because you've got seasonal allergies. You're not going to stab yourself with an EpiPen because you might have a peanut. But this all aside, that's for an entirely different lesson. The point is, some of you are going to experience failure because you've replaced your only coping mechanism with pain. You've not given yourself time to identify new coping mechanisms. The only thing that was working, however dirty that fuel was, is no longer there. And that's going to cause a sharp pain as well. It'll be the same thing.
Yeah, you don't give yourself the time. Everybody's in a rush. You don't give yourself time to look at different coping mechanisms. You don't give yourself the time to identify the fucking issues. Somebody in the chat says Mike is a smash. I could not agree more.
Oh, get out of here, Levi.
But with all this being said, I think this is a good
Aaron's
place.
here too. I want to just give a shout out to Aaron. Hey.
Hi, Aaron. Everybody say W. Aaron's in the chat. W. Aaron in the chat. W. Aaron in the chat. W. Know me in the chat. Have you seen that Drake meme going around? He goes, "W's on the fucking shot." So funny. The way he delivers it is fucking hilarious. Anyway,
have you seen the other video from Drake?
Shut up, dude. God damn it. Okay, we're falling apart here, kiddos. With all this being said, the final note that I did want to touch on, as Mike's
there goes my phone. Everything's good.
Stop being in such a rush. One of the biggest mistakes we ever see, both in our followers, in our videos, and our strangers that speak to us, everybody's in a rush. That's one of the biggest failures that you can make. You'll probably fail a lot less if you just slow the fuck down and stop being in a rush to get everywhere. Remove the time frame, give yourself the grace, and give yourself one thing to work on at a time. We don't multitask well. So stop being in such a rush and create something beautiful, because that can apply to a lot of what Mike and I are doing right now too.
Everything. I'm very slow and methodical with everything that I do, largely because I tend to be very risk averted. I don't like taking risks. I don't like doing a lot of things that push me out of my comfort zone. But because I was so averted to risks for so long, I stayed stagnant and I stayed exactly where I was. And my belief systems didn't change and my circumstances didn't change. And I myself am about to make a very scary change. I've been making a lot of scary changes lately that in my own personal life that have been extremely rewarding. Like the greatest moments of my life have happened in moments where I've just said, fuck it, I'm going to do it, and break the stagnation of familiarity and push out of that zone of failure. Because some of you are certain of what tomorrow looks like, and many of you are not happy with it. Shake it up. Do something different.
Complacency is failure. Change it.
You know what else is failure? Us not reading our comments section.
No, I wanted to read one from Levi that was pretty out of pocket, but you were on a good tangent, so I wanted to keep it PG.
I get a couple of good rants every time, and then of course I go into a nervous laughter for other reasons. But
anybody else in the live, if you guys have any questions, please drop them. We're going to open up to a couple questions. We've already been yapping for 49 minutes, so we're probably going to keep it a little brief this time. But let me know whatever questions you guys got. I think I saw a couple good ones that we can apply from
we need
earlier.
A question box.
We do. Like I said, we're doing this slowly because
we're doing it slowly.
Yeah,
we're not rushing into anything, and we're figuring out where we're falling short and where we need to change and adapt. And just because we don't have a thing for the questions right now doesn't mean that we've failed. It just means that we need to do a little better next time. That's what it's going to look like for you.
We're still showing up, even though it's just pure incompetence on our side. Tech.
But if I could make it sound a little more eloquent and say it in this voice that everyone gives me compliments on, I think I can probably soften the blow.
Yes, absolutely.
Perhaps. Maybe put some echo or some soft music behind us.
I saw
let everyone know that you're doing fantastic.
We kind of answered them already. I'm trying to find one that we didn't answer through our conversation. We got a lot of really nice thank yous and really nice, kind messages. Thank you guys for those. All right, let's see.
In lieu of flowers, send us questions, damn it.
He'll never have a cold lap as long as we're friends.
Here we go. We have a real question. How much of a negative effect would alcohol have on weight loss / muscle gain? There's this myth going around that alcohol slows down fat metabolization for like 36 hours or something. That's not true. There's no science to substantiate that. What it will do is very easily put you into a calorie surplus, which will stop you from burning fat, because that's the way that works. But there's nothing chemically about it.
No, go ahead. Finish. Sorry, finish.
I was just going to say that as far as I'm aware, there's nothing chemically that's inhibiting anything.
It does inhibit muscle growth.
Oh, okay.
It does actually. I mean, alcohol is literally poison. Like, I'm not saying that as a buzzword. It is a literal poison.
It is.
And I always say if there is something to cut out completely, I would say it is alcohol. I don't tell my clients to do that necessarily. I just teach them how to do it sustainably and safely. But if there was something theoretically that I would tell people to objectively just stop consuming, it would be alcohol, because it's literally poison. But you can do it safely. I've seen plenty of successful. I've got a guy down 25 pounds that used to drink like a 12 pack a day. So it's possible. And we change things up. We do it in a healthier way, but we don't completely change the lifestyle, at least at first, right? But alcohol does have a ton of negative effects on actual muscle growth. But like Mike said, on a weight loss perspective, purely calories in, calories out, it's just liquid calories that don't really fill you up, that cause you to make a bunch of other silly decisions later. That's just really hard to be in a calorie deficit when you're drinking a lot of alcohol. So that's that. There's another really good question that says, how do I lower my sugar levels in a sustainable way?
So is this coming from a perspective
it?
of maybe someone who's over consuming a lot of sugar at the moment? There's a couple of different ways that this can go. I mean,
yeah, there's a couple
they're
of
talking
nuances
sugar levels like in terms of a diabetic, that's something that we really can't deal with here. But if you're just talking about cutting down on sugar, where is it that it's coming from? Are you just consuming a lot through the day, or are you restricting yourself and binging a lot through the night? Is that the one thing that like you give yourself in a way and you treat it very special, like, the cheat day mentality?
Yeah, there's a little bit more nuance required with this question and where it's coming from. Like Mike said, if it's from a diabetic standpoint, just going for more fiber and natural sugars will definitely help. Adding more filling fiber and protein to your meals, so you are kind of controlling. Again, I've worked with people with insulin resistance and diabetes. We're not specialists. We can give general advice. We can't give specific advice in that diabetic context. However, if you're just asking because you think sugar bad for weight loss, there's nothing inherently wrong about sugar when it comes to your weight loss journey. There's nothing special about sugar as a property that will destroy your weight loss journey. Yes, sugar has calories, and yes, sugar is very easy to eat and overeat if left unchecked. Why? Because sugars are simple carbs, and simple carbs have very little actual satiation effect. And what that means is simple carbs by themselves do not fill you up. You can eat millions of pounds of simple carbs, and you will just, that's why you're never full eating chips, eating candy, stuff like that. Not because they're bad, it's just because they're made up of simple carbohydrates. So what you do is you pair them with other foods that will fill you up. That is the best way that I have found for me and my clients to go about it. But sugar
Protein
itself,
bearing.
yes, sugar itself, as long as you have nothing else, like assuming that you are a perfectly healthy human, yes, reducing the sugar will reduce the calories, and you can use stuff like aspartame, stevia, Splenda, monk fruit, stuff like that to go sugar-free. I actually found a sugar-free sweet tea at my Meijer yesterday. They just use stevia to sweeten it. It was bomb. It was so good.
Usually they don't use stevia for it. They're using I don't like the taste of aspartame myself. So I just like to avoid it for that reason, not because it's going to give you cancer, because the phone that you're watching us on right now, congratulations, you're watching us on a cancer-causing device in the same category by the World Health Organization as aspartame. So if you've cut out aspartame, go back to it. Go get yourself a Diet Coke. The world is burning. The people who are voting on our environmental laws are statistically won't be alive in a couple of years, and they're making decisions that don't concern us. So
have a diet soda.
Have a real one. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
What does it matter?
Mike goes on his nihilism rant. I love it. Awesome, guys. Well, that was two very quality questions that I think had a little bit of application to what we spoke about, and I love being able to have a topic to speak about, but then answer some of the stuff that you guys are dealing with. Those of you watching on YouTube, by the way, we record Wednesdays, either late morning or midday. We go live on Instagram. So if you want to be a part of this and see this live, go to our Instagram pages on Wednesday mornings, pop in, say hi, ask a question, or if you have another one, pop it in the YouTube comments. I look at those. I try to respond to them as best I can. Or if I think it's something that we should be discussing, we'll talk about it on the pod. So that's just about everything I have for us today. Damn near an hour mark this week, which is awesome. Mike, what are your closing statements?
My closing statements, I'm going to go back to my weight loss hat again. Manageability, intuitiveness, lifestyle, freedom, and sustainability. That's what we should do. Those are some 5 core tenets of a healthy lifestyle and good sustainable weight loss. So
I love MILFs.
I would be devastated if I were to learn that this hat had a different meaning.
In the wise words of Mike Pridgeon, be kind to yourself, love MILFs.
Keep it simple, big fella.
And keep it simple, big fella.